for you today. Today we're going to be exploring the question of what and who is the Bohemian Grove with Don Eichelberger. Don Eichelberger is the founding member of the Bohemian Grove Action Network. Thank you for joining the circle today, Don.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This is kind of an elusive and enigmatic subject. A lot of people that I talk to today still have no idea who the Bohemian Grove is, but this one is more central to you because I think you live nearby.
I did when we first started protests. I now live in San Francisco, but when we started the protest, I was living in Camp Meeker, where Mary Moore, who is also the main founder of the Bohemian Grove Action Network, she and I was sharing her place up there. So she was the first person to tell us about Bohemian Grove because it was like 5 miles from her front door.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was a local issue with international potential repercussions.
So let's get started with this. What is the Bohemian Grove?
Well, Bohemian Grove, it's a tract of land, 2,200 acres of land up in Sonoma County along the Russian River near Guerneville that's owned by the Bohemian Club in San Francisco. Bohemian Club is an elite men's club, more elite than most, according to Dr. William Domhoff, who did a book called The Greatest Men Party on Earth, which is about Bohemian Grove. And, it was Bohemian Grove and other ruling elite escapes, something to that effect. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But he came out with a book in the late 70s that talked about the Bohemian Grove and who went there. It turns out to be the longest running exclusive 2-week off the record campout in the world. There's of the hundreds of men's clubs in the world, this is the only one that has a full 2-week off the record campout with some of the most powerful men in the world. It's an exclusively men's only club.
It sounds like you're referencing the Bilderbergers and stuff like that. Is that what you're comparing them?
Yeah. Bilderberger is more of a business association, some of those kind of things. This is a totally off the record. They say fun only. They claim that no business is transacted there. And to some extent, I guess that's maybe believable, but you don't have to transact. You don't have to sign any contracts to transact business. We believe that, we need to back up a little bit. But they have a 2-week, as I say, off-the-record encampment during which they have stage plays. They have daily, what they call lakeside talks, which can be anything from art or music or social events, public national events. They have anybody from, professors of biology talking about the local flora and fauna to defense secretaries, secretaries of state, vice presidents, people like that talking about international policy. And so they have these daily lakeside talks, which we feel is probably the crux of the matter for what our concerns are, because they keep saying there's no business transacted there. But at the same time, they can have the Secretary of Defense talking about the need to modernize weapons to face the challenges in the 21st century, as Caspar Weinberger did back in 1980 or 82, I think it was. And other secretaries of state, secretaries of defense, joint chiefs of staff, people like that, have been on records. Henry Kissinger was a regular contributor every year. We have a lot of concerns just about that one event, let alone the talk at one of the 125 bars at Bohemian Grove that goes on after those talks.
Are there any presidents?
Presidents are members of the Grove, but they are not allowed to go there while they're in office because of security issues.
So they do go after.
We have our doubts that that's always the case. I mean, part of it is the secrecy, but there was an unconfirmed report that Ronald Reagan showed up, in 81 or 82, right after, but for a little while. But that's hearsay. So we don't think that they generally come on a regular basis because of just the security issues.
How long has it been in existence?
Bohemian Grove Bohemian Grove was founded in like 1878, I believe. Originally, it was a getaway for mostly there were like 120 newspapers in San Francisco at the time.
Wow.
A lot more than there are these days. Kind of like cable channel these days. But they would get together at this bar and hang out and stuff. So then they decided to have a camp out, and over time they had these camp outs in various places, and finally ended up buying the land that they now hold their encampment at Bohemian Grove. The Grove was, I understand, slated to be clear cut slated to be cut, and the Bohemians interceded in that to protect that land. Although we understand there have also been a great number of redwoods taken out from their backcountry. I was there one day in the 80s. I saw a logging truck coming out of Bohemian Grove with one log on it.
One log.
One log that was weighing down the truck. So I know they have logging going on. There was at least one member quit over that because of, they're claiming to love the land and cherish the land and be in their main grove, but allowing the logging and stuff to go on in the back country to help offset the costs of the club.
Now, what are some of the big names of the Bohemian Grove? I know you mentioned Henry Kissinger, some of the Secretary of Defenses. Are there other big names? I've heard Bill Gates. I've heard some other people like that.
I don't know if Bill Gates, he's not a member.
Okay.
He may have been there as a guest. Guests are a little harder to find. If they stopped publishing the guest list right after we got a hold of a couple back in the late 70s, early 80s, they stopped publishing those. Those are held closely. There's one list that's held at the guardhouse at the entrance. But members, some of the Crockers, people that we will recognize. A lot of banks. The founder of Bank of America was a member. Over the years, it started out originally as for writers and artists. It still is. It claims to be, to support the arts and stuff like that. So they had, Mark Twain and people like that were going. Presidents that have been members. Well, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, and the Bushes. Both the Bushes are members. Just in the presidents. These are just presidents that are members. We found out recently that Bill Clinton attended during his presidential campaign. I think it was in 1994 or 95. His campaign director went to the Grove the year before, and then he went to the Grove during the election campaign. So we know he was there, but he's not a member, and he's not a regular guest even, I don't think.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
So now we know a little bit about the history of the Grove. We know some people who attend. What do you think they're doing? What is the biggest concern that the Bohemian Grove Action Network has?
Well, again, it's their definition of business that we have a real problem with. They say they don't, the Grove motto is "Weaving spiders come not here." Now we know that there are heads of corporations, besides the political people that go there, the presidents and the secretaries of state and secretaries of defense and all of those people that go there. Heads of the U.S. Supreme Court go there on a regular basis. But there's also people like the Bechtels, who, Bechtel Corporation has built infrastructure all around the world, including nuclear and arms depots and oil refineries and things like that. So of course, the banks, most of the banks have been or are representative. We understand over the course of research in the last 30 years, starting with not Reagan's time. Our first protest was 1980. That was the year that Reagan was running for office, and inside the Grove, we had a camp out at the front of the gate for the full 2 weeks of the camp out. So we had a constant presence there. So people coming in and out, workers and employees and members would come in and out to walk downtown or to enter, and the members were singing hallelujah. They were talking about how they called him Emperor Ronnie at the Grove in 1980. They said he would be elected. They knew he was going to get elected, and they knew that he was going to release the hand of the invisible hand of the marketplace. Is exactly the way a couple of people there put it. He will release the invisible hand of the marketplace. So we know that Ronald Reagan we didn't realize he was going to win by the margin that he did, and California polls were closed by the time they declared him a winner, but that was a whole side issue because of the ownership of the media, who are also well represented at the Grove. All of the main media corporations have or have had members over the last 30 years that are members of the Bohemian Club and go to Bohemian Grove. So the issue of who goes there and what they do, we know as an example, we just trying to figure out who they are. They have published a pamphlet that we came into possession of about their role in the development of the atomic bomb. And they are very proud of the role that they have in the development of the bombs that dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Alamogordo and other places. It started out, Ernest Lawrence, developed an idea for the cyclotron. He was invited to the Bohemian Grove in 1936, I believe, and then became a member subsequently. The first meeting of the group that would become the Manhattan Project was held at one of the Grove chalets up there that they have. So we know, and they're very proud of that there were so many Bohemians, including the UC Board of Regents, many of whom go there, and have had, a say in research that has gone on at the UC. So that's just one small example. Of course, we have, as I said, Caspar Weinberger making his address in 1982 on rearming America, and the buildup of arms that has happened since then is, directly, reflective of the fact that so many war makers go to the Grove. The heads of all the major arms manufacturers have gone or still do go to the Grove on a regular basis. We had one arms dealer at the Grove told Dr. Peter Phillips, who did a dissertation on the Grove, that while he didn't do business at the Grove, the contacts he made for business follow-up outside the Grove were everybody understood to be very worthwhile and very useful.
You said Dr. Phillips?
Yeah, Peter Phillips. He teaches at Sonoma State University, and he also has Project Censored, which covers the most unpublished stories of the year. So yeah, he was there at a lesser gathering. They have a couple of gatherings. They have the main Bohemian Grove HiJinx, and then they have a spring jinx, which is for more family members and friends and guests and stuff to come to a kind of a spring gathering, much like the summer gathering.
Let me get to the, our time is coming up here soon in a couple of minutes. Last question I wanted to ask you was the cremate care. I've heard this a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe some of the, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Jungian connection as well?
Yeah, cremation of care is a ritual that frankly befuddles me. I don't understand, but it's a pageant that's put on at the beginning of each Grove gathering on the first Saturday night of the gathering, where a coffin said to contain the dull cares of the marketplace, that's in quote, dull cares of the marketplace, dull care for short, is taken out to the owl shrine at the lake. It's carried through, and then there's a procession. It's got acolytes, torchbearers, a high priest, sound effects, light show, fireworks, the whole 9 yards to do this. The huge production where they take a coffin said to contain the dull cares of the marketplace and have a ritual burning of it. And of course, at the end, it escapes. It laughs and it goes off into the woods saying, "I will await your return to the marketplace." So they don't really kill care, but they don't show a very good attitude toward care either. In my estimation, they cremate, they kill everything that's, I don't even have the words to describe it. Basically, care has, they're killing the cares, the day-to-day cares of running a big business and having to meet payroll and doing all the thousands of things that a CEO has to do to keep thousands of maybe millions of employees employed, and all that stuff. So but there's also an aspect of care about concern for people and things in the world that that seems to be, they don't acknowledge, at least they don't acknowledge that aspect of care. So psychologically, it seems to me, if you look at Jung or you look at the way that icons operate in our mind to give us our frame of reference, and you've got an icon saying that care is a bad thing, I just see we're seeing the fruits of that now in the way that the world is operating in terms of looking for a military solution to every question that comes up, and the amounts of money that are being made right now are staggering. We have the 1%, but we're talking about Bohemian Grove is probably 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I mean, they are generally a lot of the main movers and shakers in the world, and their attitudes mean a lot. And if they've got an attitude that says, "I don't care," that's scary, because there's a lot that we need to care about. We need to care about people, and we need to care about, kids being bombed in Palestine and stuff like that. We need to care about police shootings. We need to care about a lot of things, and we're not being encouraged by mainstream society to do that, I don't think. And I think that's a direct reflection of what goes on with the cremation of care at Bohemian Grove. So I have no answer. Psychologically, to be in that rarefied atmosphere of making decisions every day that affect millions of people, that affect war and peace and all that stuff, that's a heavy burden to carry. And I just wish that the Bohemians included care in their toolbox for handling those situations, because I just feel like subconsciously, subliminally, they know about subliminal advertising. There's advertising people there. They know the power of advertising. They learned the power of advertising in the Third Reich. They know how to curry public opinion. So for them to say we're exempt from being brainwashed by this effort to kill care every year just doesn't make sense to me. I think on some level it's affecting people. And when it's affecting people like the Bechtels, when it's affecting the big banking corporations and the ones that are kicking people by the millions out of their households right now, I think there is a big lack of care going on in the world. And I didn't even go into the owl-shaped altar and the visuals that go into that. I'm just going into the concept. Then the visuals are disturbing as well. You can see them, unfortunately, those are the visuals that seem to take over the discussion when we talk about Bohemian Grove, and people don't hear about the other concerns that we have about the quality of people who are going there and what kind of decisions they're making. When they hear about the Bohemian cremation, that suddenly takes people into all kinds of speculative areas and stuff. And we at Bohemian Grove Action Network are trying to cut back as much on that speculation and quantify as much factuality as we can muster as what's going there. Right now, the big movers and shakers in the world have also been Bohemian Club members for 20 years. That would be the Koch brothers. At least David Koch has been a member for the last 20 years. And we're seeing the effects that they're having. We're seeing the money that's going into politics. We saw, we've seen Supreme Court justices go there, and now they're coming out with things like Citizens United, that gives big money all the carte blanche they can have to go ahead and throw all the money into politics as usual. And we see, over and over again that generally, I think it's 90+% of the time, the candidate that spends more money is the candidate that wins. And, there are exceptions sometimes that happen. We can get a few, activist boots on the ground from time to time, especially in a presidential election year, to turn that around a little bit. But it's still there, and I have my theory is that the Bohemian Club itself is a direct response of what's going on. I mean, I wish I could find the words to describe how closely I see the goals of the Bohemians being reflected in society as we're seeing today.
Thank you, Don, for that very insightful 20 minutes into the Bohemian Grove, and thank you again for joining us, everyone. Remember, our motto is simple: wherever there's psychology involved, we are there. And for more information about the Bohemian Grove, you can go to exposebohemiangrove.net. Thank you very much. Until next time, everyone.